Welcome back. This is part 2 of cell signaling, and what we're going to do this time is look at some more specific types of signaling that we find in primarily in animals. Okay, so this is going to be a real quick run through, just to give you the main categories of types of signaling that you will encounter, and this will be important when you get to physiology so that you can identify these processes in action. So as well as knowing about these, you should be able to recognize what is happening, whether it's this type of signaling or that type of signaling, based on an example you're given. I'll give you a question at the end to give you an example of what I mean. Okay, our first type of signaling is called direct intercellular signaling. This is common within tissues. For example, here's an epithelial layer, and you can see that those cells are joined together by gap junctions. We talked about those a few videos ago. And so what will happen in direct intercellular signaling is that small molecules, information-containing molecules, can pass through the gap junctions from cell to cell to cell, down a concentration gradient, obviously, and in doing so, they send information from one cell to the next to the next. Now, the cells have to be in direct physical contact here, and this is only going to work over short distances. There's your first type of signaling. Your second type of signaling, this is really common during development and also in regulation of the immune system. This is called contact-dependent signaling. This is where two cells come together, and the nature of the way they touch sends information from one cell to another. So what do I mean by the nature of the way they touch? Okay, let's take a look at these two cells here. So there's a cell on the left here. So that cell there on the left in that ugly brown color, it has got a molecule on its surface, and that's a signaling molecule. So that could be a carbohydrate, could be a lipid, probably a small protein on its cell surface. And this yellow cell here is going to receive some information from the cell that's doing the sending of the information. That's the cell with the blue signaling molecule, and the target cell receives that information using this receptor. We've talked about receptors a little bit before, and so these two things kind of fit together, and if this matches this, if the receptor matches the signaling molecule, that represents the communication of information, and the target cell will have a response. Now, sometimes it's actually goes both ways, but here it's just the target cell. That's called contact-dependent signaling. It's when the cell surface of one cell touches another cell, and there's an interaction between the signaling molecule physically attached to the surface of the cell sending the information, and it's recognized by a receptor on a responding or targeting cell. So that's our second type. Our third and fourth type I'm going to stick together because they go well together. Now, these are called autocrine and paracrine signaling. So a subtle difference between the two. So let's take a look at autocrine signaling to start with. That's over here on the left. So in autocrine signaling, we have a cell, and that's the cell in the middle. The cell in the middle is sending a signal, and that's the release of those little blue balls you can see. So this is a signaling molecule that's been released by the cell in the middle. And the thing with autocrine signaling is that all of the cells around the cell releasing the information, think about it in 3 dimensions like a tissue, will respond as long as they've got the receptor for the ligand. So the ligand, remember, is the signaling molecule. The receptor is the molecule on the cell surface, which will bind the ligand and say basically to the cell, hey, look, we're receiving information, we've got to respond appropriately. Now, with autocrine signaling, the cell that's doing the sending of the information can also respond. Now, this is a little unusual. This often happens in disease states where the cell sending the information also responds to the information. So that's autocrine signaling. Let's compare that with paracrine signaling. Paracrine signaling, the cell sending the information here is still in the middle, and it's sending out the same signal, these little blue ligands, and all of these target cells in yellow around the periphery here, they have receptors, and so they will respond to that ligand. Now, paracrine signaling compared to autocrine signaling, the paracrine cell, the cell doing the releasing of the signal, that doesn't respond to the signal itself. Both of these work on very short distances, so within tissues, in organs. Make sure you can compare and contrast autocrine and paracrine. Our last type of signaling here, and then we'll wrap up with a question, is something you're probably familiar with, endocrine signaling. So this is how hormones work. And so what we have is we have a cell that's going to release information in the form of a signaling molecule, these little blue balls again, and those are usually hormones. They're commonly going to be small lipids, and the signaling molecule can enter the bloodstream and move through the bloodstream, difficult to see in red, sorry, and will travel to a target cell, where the target cell, if a cell has a receptor, it can have a response. Now, Lots of different types of cells respond to the same hormone. Epinephrine, adrenaline will act on many cell types in different organs. This is long distance signaling, and so one cell in one part of the body releases the signal, and cells in a different part of the body connected by the blood system will have an appropriate response. So a lot of hormones act in this way. So that is endocrine signaling. It's a whole field of study. We have a whole course dedicated to endocrinology. So those are your 5 types of signaling. Here's the kind of thing I'm going to be interested to see whether you can do. Can you take an example like this and apply what you know about those types of signaling to identify the type of signaling that is being described? So give this one a go, and then we'll wrap up for this video. Okay, so that's it. We've got 5 types of signaling. Make sure you know them, and then if I give you an example, you should be able to identify the type of signaling from the example like we did in that last question. That's it, and I will see you shortly in our next video.